We're using Zoom for this meeting, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. The chair can request members of the public to provide their names for the purpose of keeping accurate minutes. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to this meeting. Registration link can be found in the description of Nantucket Government TV YouTube feed for this meeting. I don't think that's applicable for this meeting, but attendees will join in listening mode and they can click to raise their hand if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. All questions should be directed through the chair. Confirming membership access. As a preliminary matter, this is the Nantucket Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated in the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, Joe Topham.
Aye.
Come here.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm here. I'm the chair, Dave Iverson. Do we have John Kitchener here?
Aye.
Abby DiMolina.
Yeah, I'm on this meeting right now.
Is Steve with us?
Here.
Oh,
Great.
hello.
Okay. Those are the alternates. As staff members, we have Megan.
Hi,
Trudeau.
I'm here.
I've got the Zoom meeting up, but I don't see anything where I
John,
can.
John B, could you please mute?
I just muted him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Billy,
Here.
great. Barry has arrived. This is an open meeting of the Nantucket Planning Board. Is being conducted pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting's video conference via Zoom app is posted on the town's website, identifying on how public may join. The meeting ground rules. We now turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective, clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude the remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called further. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any responses, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment for those members of the public who have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and acknowledge by and speak through the chair. All righty. Welcome, everybody. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Nat, seconded by Barry. Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and Joe.
Aye.
There's too many things on the screen. I'm getting lost. And I'm an I as well. Minutes for December 11th. Questions, concerns? Changes?
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Motion made by Barry, seconded by Nat. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an I as well. Okay, on to 14 Trip Drive. Oh, there he is, the man. Welcome. You are up on Trip Drive.
Dan Malloy, I'm not really sure if there's much for me to say. It's just an A&R plan.
Yep.
This is the first step, basically requesting the board's endorsement of the A&R plan for 2 lots as proof that we can proceed with the rear lot subdivision.
Great, thank you. Meg, can you take a minute to explain what what we're trying not to do here and why that is just about opening Trip Drive and the proprietor's road and how that the board sees this as a better option.
Sure. So why approved plan needs to be submitted? It's a plan that proves, if you will, that you can create frontage on the proprietor's road by extending Trip Drive through easement, clear cutting the proprietor's road, constructing a traveled way on said road, which will provide lot frontage for lot 1 and 2. That is not what the intention is. That from my discussions with the applicant and the rear lot subdivision, they have no intention of pursuing that plan. This simply satisfies the requirement of approved plan showing that it could, in theory, be done. So that way you can move forward with the rear lot special permit application that provides some flexibility in how the lot lines and frontage aligns to make more sense with the existing structures and character of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Meg. I think the key is protecting the character of the neighborhood. I don't think anybody in the neighborhood or us on the planning board wants to see the rest of Trip Drive opened or the proprietor's road reopened because there is aerial footage that shows it was opened at one point. And so I just wanted to, anyone in the public that's concerned about this or listening, I think it's important that they understand that. So this is still open as a public.
No,
Right.
this is not,
No.
this is not a public hearing. This is
Okay,
an
great.
A&R application.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion at this point. We approve the A&R for 14 Trip Drive as submitted.
Second.
Motion made by Barry, second by Nat. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you, Dan. On to Norman W. Schlecki, trustee of Norman and Joan Trust Realty Trust, 10 Field Ave.
So this was inadvertently left off the agenda
Yeah.
Monday. It was a step 2 to the special permit that you all approved for the secondary residential lot. So it's just to implement that special permit.
Great. Covenant lot, correct?
Yep.
Motion
Mr.
to
Chairman,
endorse.
There you go. I'll make a second to that.
Right. Motion made by Nat, seconded by Barry. Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you. Okay, on to public hearings for ATM warrant articles. First one will be A, which is a map change from R40 to CN on Evergreen Way and Airport Road. Mimi, you're here to speak to this.
I am.
The floor is yours.
Okay, this was an article that was presented or was included in town meeting last year. And Nisha had not purchased it yet, and so we had some neighbor pushback, concerned that if we weren't the ones buying it and the previous owners owned it, that it would be chopped up into a bunch of little parcels. So we did pull out and figured we could go back again this year for the change. We did purchase it, I think it was in July, so now we are the legal owners of it and are proceeding with drawing up plans for the animal shelter and adjacent buildings, which would include housing, at least 2 duplexes, and a training education center. So the allowable footprint for R40 is not enough to give us the space to do exactly what we want to do. So we want to change to CN zoning, which would give us plenty of footprint to develop what we want to develop there. We still don't know, we are working on plans, but we don't have exactly what we're going to do yet. Matt McEachern's working on it with a off-island company that designs shelters, animal shelters specifically. And it looks like the footprint for the main building is going to be about 6,500 square feet with a very small second floor. And then the auxiliary building would be about 1,700 footprint. So we're hoping to get the CN zoning, which obviously is in the neighborhood next door at the inn. And hopefully that will pass this year.
Great, thanks. And
It was approved by the planning board last year, and land council and I believe finance committee all had approved it before we went, but we decided to be good neighbors and pull back and not scare the neighbors too much by what was going on there in terms of commercial development. So the commercial building will be on the windmill side, and the residential, the housing will be on the evergreen side, which is one thing we had discussed with a neighbor. We would not do anything commercial on that side.
great. And there was a number of uses that you all voluntarily have given up on that piece of property that go hand in hand with CN.
I think we had presented, Arthur Reed was representing the couple of neighbors. And we said we definitely would restrict the evergreen side to residential. We haven't done anything legally yet in terms of subdividing the lot. We don't plan to do that. But, you know, we don't know what the planning board, what you will allow us in terms of driveway access. We do want to bring driveway in off Airport Road for the shelter, not off Evergreen. The only access off Evergreen we would want is for the housing, for the duplexes.
Okay. And what I was referring to is more of what would be available in CN under the use chart.
Well, we're doing the animal shelter and an auxiliary building and housing. So we're not doing any, under the CN zoning, we're not really doing anything that is allowed under that. That's not in our plan. We're not doing bars,
Yep.
restaurants,
Yep.
gas stations, things like that. And we totally understood the neighbor's concern about that. I live right down the street, so I wouldn't want that either, so.
Yeah.
Barry, did you have your hand up?
I do. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do, as a matter of fact. I think what we're going to is that with CN, there's a number of things that you could put into place. And so by putting a voluntary restriction on a number of those, I think it also sends a very clear signal to town meeting and the neighborhood that these are things that you wouldn't even want to remotely pursue. Through you to Megan, I think you had a list.
I have a list in front of me. I can.
Oh,
read
that would be great, yeah. I don't have.
Billy, will you screen share that staff memo? Because that was something that was just circulated internally. It wasn't posted on the website,
All right.
but it has a series of recommended prohibition of uses that
Actually,
were otherwise allowed in CN.
Key that you voluntarily give these up. We can't force you to. So
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm just going to read it off real quick. These are a list of the uses that we think you should seriously consider voluntarily giving up. Alcohol sales, convenience stores, supermarket, formula business, tavern or bar, laundromat, dry cleaning facility, marijuana establishment, hospital, transient residential facility, which would be an inn or a hotel, contractor shop, landscape contractor, lumberyard, bulk merchandise, retail, interior, exterior warehousing, storage containers, motor vehicle parking lot or structure, maritime service station, motor vehicle sales, motor vehicle rental, motor vehicle repair and painting, motor vehicle service station, boat-related storage, and utility production.
Well, we'd have absolutely no plans of doing anything like this. And we, you know, had spoken to a neighbor that we would probably restrict this anyway. We probably would be happy to sign something that if for some reason the shelter ever closed down, God forbid, and we had to sell the property, that none of these things would be able to. We would try to keep it all kind of residential. The only thing is, when you say hospital, we may have vet services there. We may have a vet come in. Is that fall under hospital?
No, that would be veterinary, I think. I think you're safe there.
All right, that's the only thing I saw on the list. I mean, we have absolutely no plans to do anything else that's even remotely commercial.
Yeah, I think your neighborhood, your neighbors would certainly applaud it, I believe, and I think you'd have a better chance at town meeting with those restrictions in. Meg?
Can I just clarify the process, kind of how we've handled this before? So citizen article sponsors have worked with their own attorney to craft language with staff kind of behind the scenes and in advance of town meeting to create this deed restriction that would be enforceable by the planning board. We would withhold it until such time this would pass at town meeting, and that is when the planning board would endorse and record the restriction. If for some reason this weren't to pass at town meeting, then the restrictions obviously would go away because it would stay R40 and it would be a moot point.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have questions? You seem. You good?
Who you talking to now? Me?
No, I was
Mr.
asking Hank,
Oh.
because
Oh, okay.
are you
I
guys
just
good?
want to do
Any
this. I just want
questions?
to follow up a little bit on what Megan said and what Barry said, just for the neighbors, because I
Hold on
know
one
they're all
second.
here.
Hold on one
Okay.
sec, Matt.
Okay, go ahead.
Hank, you guys are good at the moment. Perfect. All
Yeah.
right, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of, I've had some back and forth with Hank, and I just want to make sure that he understands that when we go to town meeting, this will be like it's binding. Whatever happens with staff through the owners is going to be recorded on this property. This is like a special permit to eliminate the zoning that's allowed. I mean, the uses that are allowed that they want. And this has happened before, Hank, with other things like Megan said, but it doesn't happen every year. So it's, like new for everyone over here. Okay. So, Mimi, we appreciate this. This is like in a perfect spot, in the sense of on Montahasset side and all that. And the access stuff has to be in this for the housing, Megan, like all these little pieces. Once the permitting goes in and comes in, is this going to end up being a special permit for us to approve? Or is this something that's just through the HDC? The hot animal shelter stuff. That's a special permit, isn't it, or no?
Are you asking me?
I'm Megan, or whoever knows the
Somebody
answer
knows.
100%.
I'm not very familiar with the proposed plans. I think Leslie.
Oh, Leslie's on now.
Yes, yeah.
I was
Okay.
gonna say Leslie would be, if there she
Yeah,
is.
there she is. Oh, she was
Yeah.
coming on. I knew she was coming on. Yep.
I was listening. So last year we added, I don't have last year's warrant in front of me, but it was, animal hospital shelter type uses allowed by special permit in all zoning districts. So a special permit would need to come to the planning board.
Okay, so
Provided that it meets the size threshold to come to the planning board. And I think Mimi said that it would be about 6,500 square feet. So that would be within your purview.
okay, so Hank, see, they got 2 layers now, so this is good. Okay.
You're on mute.
Board members or anyone from the public?
How do I raise my hand?
You can just speak, Hank. Floor is yours.
I thought I was still muted. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All your use restrictions would make the neighbors much happier. We like the idea of everything you said there. And the other thing I've heard that I did really like was Mimi mentioning possibly making it a partial zoning change and keeping residential on Evergreen. We'd kind of like to have a little bit of a buffer zone so that somebody else down the road, be it Airport Road or down Evergreen, can't try to use this piece of CN to next year come back and change the zoning and piggyback off of this one. So if we could find a way to tailor that kind of to get them the ground coverage they need without doing a full 2-acre lot that's a carte blanche 32,000 square foot buildable ground cover type of deal, would also make us a lot more comfortable.
Hank,
That
we're not splitting the zoning on this lot, but I think what Mimi's saying is that the residential portion of what she's building will be on that side of the lot, but the whole lot will be under CN. And you know, creep is something that we deal with, so I think that you just need to keep your eyes open, and if someone comes in to change the zoning in the next lot down, then you need to stand up and speak out, and we as a board typically don't like to see that either, so. But
Mr.
can't-
Chair, can I
Yes.
just ask Leslie through you real quick?
Yes.
Again, this is one of these once in a 5-year thing or 10. This doesn't happen every day. Leslie, could we put language into the restrictions that cover that residential piece if there was a future sale? Is there anything that we can do with that?
You can really put anything that the property owner will agree to within the restrictions that.
I know what Hank is
The
talking about.
zoning
He wants
issue.
to, yeah, he wants to
So-
make that like magically turn into R40 or something, that little piece, but right now that isn't really the right thing. But could we have some language that would require the future owner that's restricted to strictly residential on that piece? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yes, you could,
Okay.
you'd need a survey or something to show the area, but you could certainly,
Yes. Yeah.
restrict a portion of the property to residential only. You know,
Okay.
if Nisha's willing to agree to that.
Okay.
Just to say, I believe that, we spoke that we could restrict the evergreen side to just residential, and that would never, even if it's in CN zoning down the line, if we ever got rid of it or had to, that would remain residential only on that side of the property. And we do plan, Elizabeth, can't think of her last name, is our architect, our landscape architect, and we plan to do a lot of buffer also just for landscaping around, just to buffer, especially those, next to Hank and the man across the street who was concerned. So we will have a lot of landscaping buffer between the residential and even the where the shelter is. So it will be pretty nice, I think. But we definitely, I'd have to talk to the board, but in my conversations with the building committee for the last several months has been, if we want the CM zoning for the footprint, but we would restrict the evergreen side, those lots on that side, to strictly and forever in perpetuity being residential.
Great. Hank, you're lucky to have a good neighbor.
Yes.
Um,
Mr. Chair,
anybody
if I
else? Yeah, I didn't see who that was.
Hank.
Oh, yes, Hank.
Hank again.
Yeah.
I did just in response to everybody's response to mine. I had a meeting 6 or 8 months back with Leslie about the possibility or the ability to do that partial zoning change. She said that if it was all one lot, you could change a portion of it and the entire lot would get the benefit of the increased ground cover. She could probably explain it better than me. But I thought that's what my conversation with Mimi was when we talked about it last year. So the neighborhood would really like to see a partial zoning change, not the entire lot.
Leslie?
We did have a conversation a long time ago, like right after town meeting, so I don't remember the specifics of that, but what's in front of you right now is R40 to CN. And, as we discussed a few minutes ago, you can put a lot of restrictions on the rezoning if, the property owner is willing to agree to those. So, maybe between now and the next meeting, we could have a discussion with staff, the butlers, and Mimi, and see sort of what those restrictions would be exactly, and present those at the next meeting.
Mhm.
And maybe that can address the neighbors' concerns.
Do you want to continue, Leslie? You saying we should continue and
Yeah.
get that cleaned up for the next meeting? Okay.
Yes.
And I have one question, Leslie, if I can. If this is a deed restriction, it would be in perpetuity, correct? So no matter what happened, if we deed restricted a portion of that lot to residential only, even if the zoning
Yeah.
changed again, that restriction would remain in effect, correct?
It would, because it's enforceable by the town.
So there's more than one way to skin a cat, I guess is what
But
I'm
there's
getting.
one issue though, Leslie, that I think is probably rolling around in his head is CN's ground cover versus R40 on the residential. The property owner now needs that ground cover calculation to work for them. But that doesn't mean they're not maximizing it, but they need that other than just the uses. So I think that's the concern here. And I'm not saying that that's the only concern. I'm just saying, again, we've never had anything like this. I don't believe in my time here, ever seen anything like this before. So
Yeah.
I think we should continue, and I think we should have, some clean plan and have a conversation with them about this. So this is kind of like Clay Street over here, kind of a situation.
All right.
So you satisfied, Hank, since you're now a veteran attendee?
Well, I don't know. It seems every time I get into something, I end up with more questions than I went in with, but
You're
I
doing
would
better
love
than you
to
think.
I would love to sit down meet with maybe and some professionals and discuss what's possible and what makes the most sense, and get the shelter what it needs to build what it needs.
Yeah.
So
While protecting yourself, which is there's no shame in that.
absolutely, that's
Really,
the goal for us.
part of our intention is to keep as much of the lot open for dog walking, for, outside space for animals. So we have zero intention to build 32,000 square feet. But what other zoning is there between R40 and CN for us to get what we need? There isn't really.
There isn't any. That's right.
Exactly. So we'd have to, CN's really our only option to get our footprint. And, if we have to restrict part of the property, we can do that. And I don't think, I'd have to speak with the board, but I don't think anybody on the board would be adverse to that at all. So we've had several discussions about it. So if you need to discuss this with me or a couple of the board members before the next meeting, that's absolutely fine.
Mhm.
Okay, great. All right, Barry, you want to
Yeah, I think,
continue?
hold on for one sec. I do.
Yeah.
I think we do want to continue at this point. Megan, what's a good juncture to continue this to?
So I think our next meeting's the 18th. That's a little ambitious to get.
Yes, I
Everyone
agree. That's
together.
why I'm asking.
I don't know if the 25th is too premature or if you'd prefer February 8th. Those are the next upcoming meetings for warrant articles.
Do you want to shoot for the 25th? And if we're still we could always move it back, out a little bit further.
Yep, that
There
gives
you
everyone
go.
a couple weeks to see if there's a common time to get together.
All right.
And Hank and Mimi are available for those dates as well.
For the 25th at
Yes.
4? Okay, and it's on Zoom.
Great. And so that's my motion at this point, is continue to January 25th.
Second.
All right, Barry made the motion, Nat seconded Barry.
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
what's that cackle for? And I'm an aye as well. Thank you,
I love-
guys.
Thank
Mimi,
you.
Hank, thank you.
I like Joe's background really good tonight. I like that.
I can't even see it.
I might came by it. Hey, how you doing?
There he is.
Whoa. All right, on to B, which is a zoning map change, R10 to CN 3 Cobble Court. Mr. Otison, I think I saw you earlier on. There you are. Welcome. Would you like to present this?
Beg pardon?
Do you want to present?
Oh,
The floor
yes.
is yours.
Okay, so our article or our proposition is just to achieve the highest and best use of the property in terms of if it's for housing, for year-round family homes, or commercial use, I guess, would include professional services, office use or something like that. And the change to CN zoning affords the best possibilities, I think, of using that lot for services needed in the community, I believe. Housing for teachers, health workers. You hear about that stuff all the time in the papers, and my wife and I think that when in a few years we're not going to need that lot anymore, and we think that's appropriate use for it.
Great. Thank you, sir. And Meg, this is eligible for the for a different quantum of vote, correct?
That's correct. I think at first, just to be clear, kind of the history of this article, it came before you all, I believe, 2 years ago when housing choice was first implemented. Town meeting voters actually voted a majority vote for this change. It didn't meet the 2/3 threshold, but at the time it was unclear that procedurally the planning board was required to make that a part of their motion. So it was tossed out just based on that. Last year, it included other surrounding properties. So if you're inclined to be supportive of this, it's important that you find kind of for those reasons, this is not a repetitive petition. The article sponsor has agreed to just have his property included, has agreed to a series of use restrictions, and it does comply with the requirements of housing choice legislation for a majority vote at town meeting, this change, because it allows for multifamily dwelling through apartments and apartment buildings where those uses are prohibited in the R10 district. So it qualifies for reason number 1 in the state statute.
Great. Perfect. Board members.
You want to go to the public there, Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me, go to the public? Sure.
Yeah.
Any hands up, Billy?
No hands up that I see.
Great. Yes, Barry.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like, since it's a two-phase process, I'd first of all like to make a motion that we close the public hearing on this.
Second.
Great. Motion made by Barry, second by Nat. Barry.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
And then I'd like to make a motion at this point that we give this a positive recommendation going to town meeting for the fact that it meets the I'm sorry, Megan, you worded that so eloquently it wasn't even funny at this point.
That's okay. It meets reason 1 and 7 under the state statute. And also you need to find that it's substantially and materially different. So it is not a repetitive petition.
Right, and the reasons behind it being substantially different are because of the change in the use restrictions, and I just completely
One
derailed.
property as opposed to more than one.
Perfect, so those findings need to be included in that as well, too.
I would second that.
There you go.
I might add something.
Go ahead, Mr. Otteson.
On the town-sponsored article last year, there were no deed restrictions.
Right.
So this is a totally different thing.
Agreed.
And I think very significant, as you have just decided.
Great. Alrighty, so motion was made by Barry, seconded by Joe, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you, Mr. Otison. Positive recommendation. Good luck this year.
And I'm an aye as well, just in case. I don't
Oh,
know.
Barry, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I asked you first.
I did, and I honestly did hear you. I think what we kind of split into something different. That's okay.
My internet isn't the greatest. I might have bleeped out.
That's
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are on to L, a zoning bylaw amendment for the Moreland Management District pool prohibition. Emily Molden. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay? I was having some internet issues before.
I can. I think we're all having them.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, so thank you all. I'm here to present my citizen warrant article to amend the zoning bylaw relative to the allowance of pools, hot tubs, and spas in the Morelands Management District. So as you all know, the Morelands Management District was created some time ago as a mechanism to protect the ecological and scenic integrity of our moorlands. And more specifically, that's really our sandplain grasslands and coastal heathlands, which are a unique and also a globally rare vegetation community. This zoning district contains a number of specific restrictions and limitations which were put in place really to enhance those protections. And the current bylaw allows for the construction of pools and hot tubs and spas through a special permit with the planning board as the granting authority. And the article that I'm proposing would eliminate that use through a special permit. And that's been done on the use chart specifically, as well as incorporating the specific language you can see in section 139.13 there of the bylaw. Now, I would say that I'm aware of the fact that the nomenclature, the terminology has since changed. I submitted this article using the use chart as it currently existed, but I believe it's outdoor residential recreational water features at this point in time. So I'm definitely open to any thoughts about amendments that might be necessary to clarify that going forward with the article. I think as far as the why I'm presenting this and why I submitted this, I think the number of recent applications before the planning board for pools in this area has increased, and throughout those hearings and discussions, there have been a number of concerns that have been raised regarding the impact of these uses, and just that these uses are actually not appropriate for this area of the island for this district. Something else that I just wanted to add, we've taken a look, done a little bit of research on the number of properties that are residentially developed and used within the Morelands Management District. And it really constitutes that area known as Smooth Hummocks, sort of south of the Myakama Golf Club, and also head of the plains a little farther west out towards Matticat, which is primarily permanently protected open space. But the residential properties that are located within this district, I believe there's 20 of them. And we took a look at how those properties are built out currently, just through the town's GIS and assessor information. And one of the restrictions or limitations that is written into the Morelands Management District is a limitation of one single family dwelling up to 800 square feet, and then also no more than 400 square feet in aggregate of decks and porches, accessory buildings, and other impervious structures. And I just want to note that I understand that pools are not, they're exempt from the ground cover definition in our zoning bylaw, but they certainly still constitute an impervious surface. And of those 20 properties that are currently used residentially in the Morelands Management District, there's only 3 that haven't maxed out or gone beyond that 400 square feet in aggregate of accessory impervious surfaces. So I also just wanted to let you all know that there are other restrictions and limitations that I think make the addition and construction of these features additionally problematic based on the other limitations in the bylaw. But I think that's all that I have, and I'm certainly happy to help answer questions.
Thank you, Emily. Board members, questions for Emily, concerns?
Can I just quickly, before I leave, I want to just ask the question through you to Leslie and Megan,
Please.
or maybe Emily has the answer too. What are we doing with the cudweed stuff? Are we leaving those alone? Is this just the Westmire Comet Loop and some of the stuff out in Mattocket, Emily, or is that stuff in Mattocket is actually not even buildable, I believe? So, because that was mentioned when this all started, and I've kind of forgotten what we're doing now. You know what I mean? The old lug 2 stuff. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I can certainly let Megan and Leslie address this. My article is really specifically those properties that are currently located within the Morelands Management District and doesn't go beyond that. But I'll let Megan weigh in or Leslie weigh in as well.
Thank you.
No, you go, Leslie.
All right. I know the board's talked about how, some portions of the MMD have different characteristics than other portions of the MMD, but this would apply to the whole district. So all of the MMD that's in Cisco and all of the MMD that's in Mattocket as well.
Yeah, the Mattocket stuff, it was something to do with the government, but this, I was talking about that stuff over by Bartlett's that's sort of already got their pools or not already, but those were the kind of, they got thrown into MMD, but the ones that on Westmire Comet are the ones that are always the problem. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with it this way or not, but I'm not going to make any, big comments. I just wanted to make sure that we were talking about the whole thing or not.
The whole thing, that whole shoot.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Billy, do we have anyone in the public? Some hands up.
Yes.
I want to warn everyone, 3-minute max, please here. Linda Williams.
I know Steve Cohen's here as well, but he's also at the FinCom at the same time. I've gone round and around in this when I was a member of the planning board, when I was a member of the HDC, and the ZBA, and I've done a lot of the pools in Mattocket. And I think the current system of you having to do a special permit, and you can adopt the 15 things that the ZBA requires in Mattocket. It has to do with lighting. It has to do with visibility. It has to do with setbacks. It has to do with all the rest of it. I'm not a pool person, so I'm not going to say I'm going to go run out and jump in a pool. But the impact of these pools, at least in some of the ones I've worked on, where the land is already disturbed, the Concom has already signed off on them. The HDC has done it because their lack of visibility and lack of impact. Seems to me the Concom and the HDC are the ones that are involved with a lot of this. And there's a lot of crossover. But again, it's already disturbed land. If somebody was going too close to the coastal bank, if somebody was doing it, clearing land to put it in some cases, these pool equipment's going into a vault, so it's not even above ground. Things like draining it, shutting the chemicals off, draining it at a certain point, et cetera, by a professional company. Then we might as well outlaw houses, because the impact of these pools, and you have perfect control of them because of special permit requirements. If the impact of these pools is at grade where you can't see them, and they're all adhere to all the other restrictions at least the ZBA puts on them, then you might as well outlaw houses, cars, dirt roads. Those are far more of an impact. Houses cover far more of the ground than any small pool is going to cover. And to extend it to an on-deck little spa or sauna, or, an 8x8 thing that sits on your deck or in your backyard where it's nowhere near the 100-foot level, is absurd. That is overreach and over impact. I understand a lot of people out there don't like pools. But that shouldn't be the reason why this should pass. That's just, it's killing a gnat with a hammer or a bazooka. So I still think the current thing of having to come to you guys for a special permit is appropriate. But this is clearly a personal thing with a lot of people out there. And I have a problem with that. I've always had a problem with this kind of thing. But I don't think this is appropriate. I think you have a system in place and the impact of these things is negligible compared to the impact of a 2,500, 3,000 square foot structure. And there are quite a lot of structures out there, at least in that one area, West Maya Comet, that are humongous. Because I've sat on it at the HDC. And I'm completely opposed to this and I will continue to be opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thomas Barada, I assume?
Barada.
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 Tamata. Thomas, you might be muted.
Check your volume.
All right, let's see if he can get that squared away.
I can hear him, Dave.
Can anyone else hear him?
No.
Huh.
Megan's hearing
Weird.
voices again. Well, until we can hear him, any board comments? No. Yes.
Yeah. I just feel that my days of the Concom, the area is so wide open that I could, I get Linda if she's talking about a spa, that's completely different, but we're talking about pools and anything. But at nighttime when those are lit, they're going to be glowing against a wall. And I think that the habitat near, we'll just say Maya Comet Pond, because that's where we're talking about, or out in the, in Matticat area, the wildlife is going to be greatly affected by that. It's just the nocturnal night and the lights, just the upglowing light of the pool, I think is going to be very detrimental. So that's why I'm against it. It just really is going to have a major impact on the wildlife. And I get that the Concom is maybe approving these, but maybe they're not kind of looking at that. But I feel that you can see for miles across my comment, and I mentioned that at several meetings, whether it's in Matticat or in my comment area. I think this is really impactful, and there's different, as Leslie said, and took my words out of my mouth, that there's different kind of variations to these areas as far as vegetation, etc. But most of it is extremely wide open, and that's why I have a problem with it. And that's why I am in favor of this article. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. Thomas, still no go for you? Maybe try leaving the meeting and come back in and we'll hopefully you'll work at that point. I'm with Joe. I think that there's great concerns, not only for impact in the environment, and I know that Linda brings up undisturbed areas. I think that in the end, it is going to disturb everything that we're trying to protect out of the spirit of the MMD is to protect these fragile, vital, in my opinion, parts of the island. And pools in the MMD run contrary to that in almost every application we see. So I am also in favor of this. I think, we have one chance to preserve the magic we have in the moorlands, and I really think that we should do that. Linda, I see your hand up, but I just want to make sure no one else is out in the public. And when I do call on you, please keep it short since I'm giving you a second bite of the apple. Billy, anyone else out there?
Mr. Barrett did sign back on as TB if you see him there.
Okay. Oh, yep. Tom, why don't you try again?
I'm trying to.
Perfect. That's you, isn't it?
Yep. Do you have me?
I do. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to speak in support of this article. I think Emily basically explained it quite well. This was set up a long time ago to protect the environment out there. Most of the houses out there are all small. They're single dwelling structures. It's environmentally sound, and pools are just not the right fit for that area because of the environmental issues. And I agree in regard to Mr. Topham saying about the lights and everything else. And it's not just the aesthetics of looking at it from the road or anything like that. It's also to deal with all the wildlife and the birds and what's out there. So I just, hopefully you support Emily and support this article going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Barry, you look like you had something on your mind.
No, nothing major. I just want to basically agree and echo your sentiments, Mr. Chairman, and those of Mr. Topham as well, too.
Thank you, Barry. Linda, please keep it short.
Yep. I'm a member of the Concom. I appreciate all those comments. However, having dealt with all the pools in Mattocket, the lighting issue has been addressed by the ZBA. You might want to take a look at those before you make a decision here. But the special permit would require automatic pool covers, which take out a lot of the lighting. The lights from inside the pool are not glaring. The landscape lights and the patio lights and all the rest of it that go along with it, especially in Mattocket, are where the problem occurs. It's not with the pool necessarily itself. It is with the stuff that people like to put with it, all the patios, the lights, the this, the that, and the other thing. There are some pools that are coming in that don't have patios, don't have landscape lighting, have a massive amount of screening because the HCC approved it on consent with the fact that it's not visible. Those are not going to be disturbing any more than having outside lights on a house out there and all the lights that are coming out of the windows out there of the big houses that are out there. And they are not small houses. They're natural to weather, fortunately. But there's houses out there that have a lot of lights, a lot of French doors facing the wetlands and the barrier beach, et cetera, et cetera. And those lights are 10 times more glaring than a pool light for safety requirements inside the pool that is not visible beyond the pool. It only illuminates the water below. I've been through this a million times already with other pools. So I think the special permit capability of the planning board is a positive thing to have, but to also include somebody's little 8x8 little spa that they use in the fall or in the spring or something, that's more than likely on one of their large decks out there, is ridiculous. That's overkill. We're not talking about something out in the yard. We're talking about something that's very close to the house or on a deck. And you're telling people they can't even go out and sit in a hot tub? I mean, that's ludicrous. Even out there, it's ludicrous. As I say, I'm not a pool person, but I think we need to be fair, and you already have a system in place. I just think you need more restrictions on the ones that you have approved.
Thank you, Linda. All righty. Anyone else in the public, Billy?
No more hands are raised.
All right. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing, sir.
Second.
Motion made by Barry, second by Joe.
Before you vote, I'd like to make a public comment. I'm sorry, Denise, I'm going to switch to the other meeting.
Go ahead, Mr. Cohen. The floor is yours.
Sure. I'm sorry. I'm on the FinCom and the planning board at the same time. I feel a little bit like Linda Williams. So this may surprise some of you, but as a citizen, I would like to support Emily's article. And in fact, I don't think it goes far enough. I entirely agree with her that the planning board, if it wants to ban pools in the MMD, it should be doing so explicitly. And there is a decent argument to be made that should happen. And it seems to be a popular argument. And it is not legally the case. And I know that because I have argued in front of this board numerous times that they are currently legally allowed. And I intend to continue to make that argument unless and until the bylaw is changed. That doesn't mean I don't think the bylaw should be changed. I think that change is appropriate. I would also like to note for the board that under the zoning bylaw in the MMD district, you could have any municipal use, you could have any agricultural use, you could have a daycare center, you could have a kennel, you could have a public stable, and you can have a recreational facility, which I think, means a club like the Westmore Club or the Great Harbor Yacht Club or anything. And I think that most people would agree that the list of uses that I've named would be questionably appropriate in the MMD. And I would encourage the staff to consider preparing a warrant article to change those uses as well. But at the moment, if the issue is just the pools, I think that it is a appropriate step to try to ban pools this way, as opposed to trying to do it through the special permit process in which they are otherwise allowed. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, back to the motion on the table. Yes.
Yeah, so I'll make that same motion again, just so there's no
Okay.
question.
Second.
Close hearing. There we go.
Made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion at this point that we give this a positive recommendation to go before town meeting.
I will second that. Oh,
Meg-
hold
And
on.
Megan's gonna,
Megan.
That's okay. I just want to bring up a technical matter when staff is
Please.
drafting the motion. I just want to be very clear that this is applying to the new language of the bylaw that is not yet updated in E-code for the different versions and breakdown of the what is now called residential recreational outdoor water feature, which includes 3 designations: the hot tub spa, the small swimming pool, and the large swimming pool. So just to be abundantly clear with that when it's printed in the warrant.
okay.
Great, thank you. So motion stands made by Barry, seconded by Joe with Megan's comments. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you, Emily. Good luck.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Emily.
Okay, Schreiber's been continued until January 25th. Do we need to vote on that continuation, Meg?
No, you did that at oh, actually, yes, you do, please. Sorry, I thought you did that on Monday, but you did not. If you could please continue to the 25th.
Motion to continue to the 25th.
Second.
All right, motion made by Joe, seconded by Barry. Joe,
Hold on 1 second. You might want to check the typo. It's 2023,
Oh, yeah.
January 25th, 2024.
I don't want to go back there.
Modern amendment, friendly amendment.
A friendly
So again,
amendment to the motion.
motion to approve to continue to January 25th, 2024.
All right.
Second.
Made by Joe, seconded by Barry. Joe,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay, on to S, zoning map change R5 to CN at 75B Old South Road. Ann Kuspa, welcome, Ann.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Happy to be here. Ann Crispa. I am the Director of Housing Nantucket, and as a citizen, I am proposing this, but of course, through my employment. We are trying to change the zoning to make this lot consistent. Half of the lot is CN zone, the other half is R5 zone. And we want to have the back half of the lot there in R5. We want it to be CN zone so we can put more affordable housing in that residential area there.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Meg, is this part of the housing choice?
Yes.
Yes, it sure is. So it would comply with the reason number 1 to allow for more flexible multifamily housing opportunities than what R5 would allow for.
Perfect.
So it would be a 50% threshold.
Like winning the mega bucks. All right, board members. Seems pretty straightforward. Billy, do we have anyone in the public?
Seeing no hands, Mr. Chair.
All righty.
Close public comment.
Second.
Motion made by Joe, seconded By Barry. Joe.
Aye.
Barry.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Going
that's
up,
just
yeah.
public. We're almost there.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
So I'm gonna make a motion at this point is that we give this a positive recommendation to go before town meeting and that it also meets the housing choice legislation requirements, this is for reason number one.
I will second.
Great. Motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Great.
All
Good luck.
right.
Hope it makes it through.
Thank you.
All right, next is BB. It's a zoning bylaw amendment. Greenhouse or greenhouse shed, brought forward by Beth Jekanowski. Is Beth on the meeting? I see her. Beth, maybe you're muted.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
I'm not
Floor is
sure
yours.
how to get the camera going. I'm not a techie, but and forgive me, my dog's acting up behind me. I am I am just proposing this as an option, you know, to have as well as the shed currently. And I just thought it would be a great idea to have this option and come before you regular, you know, of course, for HGC, et cetera, to you know, to have approval, you know, of what would be presented by any future application. And if you have any questions, I can understand maybe, you know, defining it, et cetera. But if you have any thoughts or any questions, you know, I'd appreciate your feedback.
So
But it just seemed like an extra option that could be presented.
just to be clear, Beth, your intention is to have this greenhouse be like a zoning shed, correct? Or you don't
To
need a-
be as like an option, because we have the 10 by 20, you know, 200 allowable square feet in an area, you know, if we've maxed out ground coverage. So it's just in addition to the definition, you have a shed currently. Just if somebody wanted to, I've thought about it myself, but do a partial, say, greenhouse connected to a shed area for storage in conjunction or separately if somebody had enough, already had enough storage, you know, independently. And I just picture something cute and pretty and in alignment with what you have already and just providing people an opportunity and a choice.
No, I think the intention is solid. Board members or staff? Emily Molden. Hold on, Emily, I'm gonna hold off. Barry?
Yeah, no, I'm generally supportive. I guess my only question is that we already have a definition of outbuilding in our code. And I'm wondering if we're just, this just seems to maybe be a little repetitive when you actually understand what an outbuilding is. So, and the thing is that by putting this in here, like I said, we've already defined it. But I'm afraid now we're gonna also have to create more definitions underneath it as well to substantiate this as code. So I think we're covered here without the necessity of trying to approve this amendment. And so I'd like some feedback from staff to be able to figure out if that truly is the case and where do you think we should go?
Leslie, do you have some thoughts on this?
I do, but if you could just give me a second to look up the definition of outbuilding, maybe you can move on to someone else quickly.
I'm gonna bounce over to Emily. Welcome back, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I had a question mostly for clarification. I just was trying to understand whether there was a proposal to increase the square footage, the 200 feet that is allowed to sort of be exempted. So would this be like a greenhouse in addition to that 200 square foot shed, or would it be that the greenhouse could be placed sort of in place of that extra 200 square feet that's not counted under ground cover. I just kind of wanted to better understand that dynamic.
It's a good question. Go ahead,
Yes, I just thought it could be in either or, so either a shed or a greenhouse. So not anything changing what's currently existing, just clarifying that a greenhouse would be available as well. And just making it clear so that it's a simpler process, actually. That was the intent, is to streamline the process and make it, because it should be something that people might aspire to have. It's a good, healthy thing to have on your property.
Agreed. Thank you, Beth. Leslie, you ready for us?
Yeah, so we do use the term greenhouse already in the definition of outbuilding. So in our current bylaw, we do not have a separate definition for greenhouse. So I suppose if the board is in favor of this, using the term greenhouse for a ground cover exemption would be consistent. It would just require an interpretation by a zoning enforcement officer to determine whether or not what's actually proposed is what's commonly considered to be a greenhouse. I don't know that we necessarily need to add a separate definition. I don't think they're really that prevalent. I think most people generally understand what a greenhouse is, and if there is an interpretational dispute, that can go to the zoning board of appeals. So, I mean, if the board's in favor of this concept of allowing a greenhouse exemption for ground cover in lieu of the shed, I think that's something that we can work with.
Yeah, an either or situation.
Right.
Yeah, that is the intent. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And just quickly, I think I did mention to some board members originally that I wasn't necessarily in favor of this article, but I had misread it. And now that I understand exactly what she's proposing, it's changed my opinion a little bit.
Good, glad to hear. Emily.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Emily. Oh, Joe, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, but go ahead, Emily. Ladies first.
Thanks, Joe. You've been waiting. But I apologize to be repetitive, but so just to confirm, this wouldn't necessarily be adding greenhouse under the list of exemptions from ground cover. It would be adding it as a potential alternative to the shed for that 200-foot exemption. Thank you.
Exactly. That's the intent, not to change any ground coverage issues at all, just to make it another option. That is it. That is clear.
And it sounds to me like maybe this could be worked out with staff without even going to town meeting. Am I wrong there?
No.
No.
Leslie?
No, so this would definitely need a town meeting vote because you would have to add the greenhouse exemption to the definition of ground cover. I mean, we do have the term greenhouse, but it's in a separate definition. So a greenhouse now would be considered ground cover.
So is this
workable? I think this is workable, and we could, I think it seems like because of the way the article was submitted, it's sort of hard to tell if that was supposed to be an either or situation or not. So we could expand on the language included in your motion so that that's clear to the reader of the warrant, that it's an either or, not an added ground cover exemption.
Thank you, Joe. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get back to you.
When I first read this, I was kind of in favor of it, but then I was trying to figure out, you can't have a zoning shed attached to a house, etc. And then, but at the same time, Ms. Beth just brought up that, having a zoning shed and then this attached, and then she said storage, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's a garden shed, is it storage? And so I was a little concerned about that. That kind of triggered. And I do believe that we were talking at last town meeting about 2 sheds, and that was kind of split. Wasn't very favorable, but I guess the question is, are we going to allow a zoning shed and the attachment of a greenhouse and 400 square feet of ground cover, or are you going to have a garden shed and then So that's where I'm just like, there's some variables in here that I think need to be vetted out. I love there's kind of a romantic thing about a greenhouse, and I think there's something beautiful with the vegetation and being in there and etc. But I think that this could be problematic. And then just, I think we need to kind of work on some things, and maybe she can go in and sit down with Leslie or Megan and kind of, work on the finessing the language on this. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So, but my understanding, right, is that you get 200 square foot allowance on a zoning shed. So we're not adding to that allowance. We're just saying you could have a 100 square foot shed and a 100 square foot greenhouse, correct? Not to exceed, or you could have one and not the other, which I mean, I think the language is problematic. And as Stephen is about to tell us, the enforcement's going to be problematic. Stephen. You're muted, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, look, so I think I'm tracking this reasonably well. I think the language that went in last year, which I had suggested, was that as opposed to one shed of 200 feet, which the concept was that you could have sheds up to 200 square feet, so that the limitation wasn't the number of sheds, or in this instance, if this were to pass, the number of sheds and greenhouses, it's the square footage is the limitation. So in the example would be, in this instance, you could have a 10 by 10 shed for storage, or you could have a 10 by 10, and you could have a 10 by 10 greenhouse for greenhousing. I'm not going to get into the greenhouse storage one that's in the proposed article, but the idea would be then you could have up to 200 square feet of either greenhouse or shed or both, but not more than 200 square feet. And I believe that tracks the language that was put in last year and approved, unless that was a COVID moment for me.
All righty. So I guess the question is, again, and I think I asked it, Leslie, this is something that can be worked out with the language we have. Correct?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, maybe we could work on, if the board members seem to be inclined to favorably consider this, we could work on a motion for you, and then you could, get I think, clearer picture at your next meeting of how that's going to look in the bylaw.
Continue this to the 18th. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, no, we're tracking in the same direction. Actually, do you want to the 25th to do it, or do you feel like this is just a short order thing? I just want to be
I think it's a short order. Let's do it on the 18th.
All right. So my motion at this point, Mr. Chairman, will be that we continue this to the 18th for a little bit of refinement.
Second.
Motion made by Barry, second by Joe. Barry.
Aye.
Do we need to close the public comment first?
No, you want to leave it open, actually, because
yeah, sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
Joe.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Stephen, I'm sorry, I did not see your hand up. You want to hold that till we talk about this again on the 18th?
I don't know if he ever took his hand down.
I don't think, yeah.
And he hasn't unmuted to answer, so we'll
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm on the phone, and it's hard just to get through these little buttons. I'll take my hand down.
No, it's not a problem, Stephen. Thank you. Okay. Now we are on to H, which is the zoning bylaw amendment, middle income inclusionary housing, and CUSPA. Welcome back, Anne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ann Cuspa here, Executive Director of Housing Nantucket. And the idea of this middle income inclusionary housing zoning bylaw is to increase the supply of housing that's accessible for middle income households. So those are Nantucket residents year round. Middle income households are families with an annual income of less than or equal to 240% of the area median income. And that's different than the way we've seen other affordability related programs. For example, the Covenant program, that serves below 150% of the area median income. This would serve up to 240% of the area median income. So inclusionary zoning is something that happens across the United States, but definitely within the Commonwealth. It gives the town the ability to produce affordable housing through private development that's already taking place on Nantucket. And this is handled as part of the special permit process. Developers would be required to create middle income housing as part of their applications to subdivide land into 5 or more lots, construct 5 or more dwellings, or develop commercial space greater than 5,000 square feet. So at least 20% of the new lots or units shall be established as middle income housing units. And with the commercial space, it would be 1 unit of middle income housing per every 5,000 square feet. So I'll just open it up to questions. I hope, and it's a lot, but we were really thorough, I think, in developing this. The worked with some subcommittees. We had a housing summit in April, and this was one of the initiatives that the collective group of people who are currently working on affordable housing on the island thought we should push forward. So we had some other subcommittees and worked with the Land Council and others on this board to kind of figure out what we thought was reasonable for developers and also, of course, good for the community and creating this middle income housing that is so desperately needed here.
Great, Anne, thank you. Meg, this checks the box for housing choice, correct?
We need to look through this a little bit more. It's not so cut and dry with this article as it is with map changes and other bylaw amendments. So we're going to need to do a little bit more research on this. And our hope is it complies, but it's not a guaranteed shoo-in that it will.
Well, hopefully that works out. Board members, questions, thoughts? Yes, Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm generally supportive of this, but I do have a few questions that have kind of popped up in the process. Oh, excuse me. Damn cold. I'm sorry. I'm just going to happen again. Why don't you go to Emily for a second and I'll be chiming back.
And welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just briefly wanted to speak on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council in support of this article that Anne's presenting. We definitely agree that it's an opportunity for the town to create more attainable housing and units without actually increasing density that doesn't already exist as potential under the zoning as it stands, and just see it as a really useful and important tool that Nantucket could and should be making use of. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have just a technical question, I guess. When you say 5-lot subdivisions, are you including road lots as a lot, or is it only buildable lots?
I would think it was buildable, but I would have to refer back to the bylaw on that.
I think that's important. I think that we shouldn't be holding people to a roadway lot, in my opinion. Joe?
I'm
Calling you
gonna
out.
wait.
Calling you
I'm gonna
down,
wait.
Joe.
I'm gonna wait till they vet a little bit further on this one.
Okay. So the hope is that we all ask questions. We all think about this. This is a big article, a long article. I don't think we'll be voting on it tonight. I think the hope is that we ask questions, and we sleep on it and we come back to it, because I think there's a lot going on here. I generally am in support of this article. But I think that as a group, we really need to mull it over for a week or so, to be honest with you, Anne. I'm hoping Barry's recovered from his sneeze and is gonna come back on with some good questions. Billy, are we still empty in the public?
Yes, there are no hands raised currently.
And Dave, just to the point, just Megan's comment, let's make sure that
Yeah.
we're both discussing something before we, go much further.
Agreed. Agreed. Barry?
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you. So just a few things that came up in reading this. If someone wants to do low income housing, which we have plenty of things on the books for at this point, how do these two dovetail to each other? Because I'm a little confused, because this sounds like an absolute mandate that if you have 5 lots or more, that's it. And so, but if someone opted to do something, for low income requirements, how does that interface with this? Because I don't see any reference in the article about how those two kind of work hand in hand with each other.
Well, this article, just the way that it's written right now, or the way things are today, if a developer was to take a large lot and subdivide it into 5 lots, they could subdivide it into 5 market lots. The way that this article proposes, one of those lots would need to serve up to 240% AMI. So with what you're talking about, affordable, so traditionally affordable is below 80% AMI.
Okay, thank you.
And those 80% AMI lots are created through a 40B or through some of the LIP, the local initiative program from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. It's the former DHCD. So those require, for bonus density, an 80% AMI unit to be created as a portion of the total number of lots that are created or homes that are created.
Right.
So this just puts in the ability to create this middle income housing when ordinarily it's just unrestricted.
Right. But I'm saying to you, as the developer is going through and they decide that they wanted to do 80% AMI or less on their project, how does that interface with the fact that you're mandatorily making them with this at 240?
It's up to 240.
Or is that, and maybe I'd like
Or
some,
less.
maybe I want some clarification from either Leslie or Megan about how, is it covered already in there with that, or is that something that we need to kind of make sure that we're not getting into foul territory here with that? Or is that something we maybe need to consider a little bit more on?
Barry, I think it's 240 or less.
Okay.
And am I right?
Yep, no greater than 240.
Okay.
So that would include 80%.
True, I understand. Yeah, I'm just trying to think a little bit ahead with this.
No, there's a lot going on here. I totally agree.
Yeah, and like I said, conceptually, I really do like this. So there were 2 other things that came up. There's a section 1-I that's in here. I don't know if Billy can bring that up. I can always go back and read it too.
Off-site.
J 1-I is what it is. There you go. As an alternative subject to bylaw constructed. So the fact that they could do this on a different off-site process, is that becoming a transfer development right issue? Or is that perfectly, I just want to make sure that language is perfectly acceptable and doesn't run afoul of a TDR or something like that, where it could be construed otherwise.
So we had language in the zoning bylaw in a different section, and it may or may not still be there.
Yeah.
But it was in the MCD section, and it required that the business provide a dwelling unit for their employees on site or off site.
Okay.
So in that case, you're not transferring your development rights. You have development rights in either location. You're just changing where you're providing the required housing.
Okay. Again, I just want to make sure that we weren't running afoul of a TDR issue with this. And then the last thing is that to monitor this whole process, we're looking at having to either have the building inspector continuously look at these in terms of the affordability issue, or I did see some mention of a private monitoring agent, but I'm a little fuzzy on that. And how much is that going to run? And, how's that going to work?
Well, I can speak to how we operate as monitoring agent because Housing Nantucket is a certified monitoring agent.
Right.
So the way we work with the town to monitor, say, some of the sandpiper units. So those were created through the workforce bylaw, I think there, where it's required. So anyway, we are paid at the time of the transaction. So that's how we get funded for it. But we have an agreement with the town that will act as the monitoring agent. So it's a monitoring services agreement. And then we certify that the buyer of the unit earns below the certain threshold, and then that the sale price is below what the max sale price should be according to the regulatory agreement or whatever agreement you have with the developer. And then finally, once the transaction has occurred, then every year we do an annual residency and really deed restriction compliance monitoring, and that we don't get paid for that. When we get paid is when the unit transacts. So that's how we operate right now, and that's how I would think that it works. So, and we would like to do that again so that we could keep our eye on and make sure that the restrictions are maintained in perpetuity.
So essentially you're saying it would, given everything goes favorably at this point, would probably continue to use that same model for this as well too. Now that really does help clarify it tremendously. Good, thank you. I appreciate it.
And if I can just add to that, Anne was talking about the ownership units, but I believe this would also apply to rental units. In which case the monitoring is a little bit different. There's still a monitoring agent that you would, I think, have to require as a condition of the approval. And the rental units have to be monitored annually to see if the person living in the unit is making less than the required income. So it's the same process, but the monitoring of it is quite different in terms of timing and tracking it.
Great.
Thank you.
Joe?
So if they hit that trigger, then they have to move out of the unit. Is that, I'm understanding that properly?
Yes, at the end of the lease term. I know we wrote that. I can look here where it is exactly.
No, I thought I read it. I just wanted to
Yeah.
confirm it and then make sure the monitoring is being done yearly. So.
I have just a
D, K2D.
concern, and maybe I can ask staff.
If I can add on the monitoring, for example, with the 40Bs, the monitoring agent has to send an annual report to the Zoning Board of Appeals, certifying that they've monitored the units in accordance with the law. So that would be the same. I'm sure we get that report from Richmond as well for their rental units and other units. I just haven't actually seen that come in, but there are very specific requirements for reporting.
And those are done on time and everything's in working order and okay, awesome. Yeah, because when I was on the Concom, we did the same thing, monitor reports, and they were brought in and we had a whole list of when they're all supposed to come in. So I'm just making sure this is all laid up. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Maybe staff could help me with this. I'm a little bit concerned, and I could be off base about the piece where 5,000 square foot MCDs would need to build a housing unit. Could staff give me a couple examples of MCDs that size that we've done recently?
Yes. So many years ago, the planning board consistently required that MCDs 5,000 square feet or greater supply an affordable, not an affordable, but a unit that would be affordable to their employees.
Yes.
And at some point, the board got away from that. There's still language in the bylaw, and it says that you may require it. It doesn't say that you shall require it. And those two words are very important when they're in the bylaw. Gray Lady Marine, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was over on, what road is that? The road that Toscana's on, Arrowhead Drive. That's one where there's an employee unit in that building. Great Harbor Yacht Club has lots of employee units that were required by the board. So does Westmore Club, which those are bigger MCDs.
Those are way bigger.
Nantucket Ice at one point had employee units, and maybe they still do. I think the board modified that somewhere along the way. So there's a long history of the board requiring that, but then again, you know, at some point they moved away from it because people were coming in saying, I already house my employees somewhere else. I don't need to build this extra unit on this particular site. So
Yeah,
it's something
okay,
that you can always consider now when someone comes in.
Yeah.
So this isn't that much different, other than this is a shall situation, not a may situation.
And that's where my concern lies. I mean, I think that 5,000 square foot lot, you know, someone trying to get into business, just starting out, 5,000 square foot lot, let's say they're a landscaper. They're not really putting any structures on the lot, but they're using it as their landscape business. Now we're going to force them to build a house on it. And that's why where I like I don't like the shall. And so I just have a small concern there. If we're really putting a stumbling block in front of, you know, new business owners or smaller business owners that don't have a lot of employees, that can't necessarily afford to do this right off the bat. And I don't know, I guess I would throw that out to other board members if you think I'm off base here or not.
No, I agree with that comment. I think that sometimes someone's just barely getting the foot in the door, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, you shall do this. And
yeah,
if listen, within 10 years you have to provide this or something, or come back to say why you can't. I don't know. I mean, I understand what we're trying to do, but at the same, there's kind of an economic component to this that we need to vet out and really kind of drill down on.
Yeah, especially with commercially zoned lots being at a premium already. I just very.
And mind you, you're talking about at a minimum 5-lot subdivision. So that's, you know, if you're going to be entering into that to begin with.
But this is not even including a 5-lot subdivision. This is if you have an MCD of 5,000 square feet, you shall build a unit, correct? And
Yes.
Okay.
At least one dwelling unit per 5,000 square feet of non-residential gross floor area. So, I mean, it's a large building.
But there's
me,
MCDs that don't really even sometimes have buildings. I mean, they could just have a lot of vehicles on it, or they could have landscape supplies on. I mean, that's don't get me wrong, Ann. I really like where we're going here. I'm just concerned that bar might be too low.
And Mr. Chair, I think the way this is written, it's one dwelling unit per 5,000 square feet of non-residential gross floor area. So if there's not a building,
Got to be a building.
There's got to be a building.
Okay, then I'm fine with that. Looks like we have Beth in the public. Welcome back, Beth.
Yeah, hi. I just have a lot of experience with working with builders, you know, that have participated in as well, you know, in affordable housing projects. My concern is the viability as it's written right now. and the smallness of the threshold for the lot size that was proposed. I'm basically in agreement at the moment with what Joseph had presented prior in his comments. It just has to be viable. So I think that that's just something that has to be reviewed. That's my thought.
Great. Thank you, Beth.
May I?
Yes, Ann.
Well, thank you, Beth. That is something that we thought a lot about because the threshold is low, and we thought a lot about, like, you know, obviously the problem here is huge and we want to be able to contribute as much as we can, but we also want to take into account the developer and that they're going to be subsidizing in a way this unit. So that's why we chose the 240% AMI threshold. And when you figure that out, like as far as how much would that be, we're developing some 240 AMI 3-bedroom homes that will be selling soon. And that purchase price is around $1.1 million. So it's not that great of a subsidy. We thought that the trade-off is, you know, it wouldn't be too cumbersome for the developer, since they were going to be creating 4 market rate lots, and I don't know what they would get for those, but that is just to give you a sense of we're trying to take the developer's perspective into consideration here too. And if you're doing this off island, they're probably gearing towards 80% AMI, so it's much less threshold. That's like $275,000 here on Nantucket would be a 3-bedroom if you're serving 80% AMI at a much lower income threshold too, of say $100,000 for a 4-person household, whereas at 240 AMI, you're at 310 or 15,000 for a 4-person household.
Great. Thank you, Ann.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, Leslie.
Finally found the raise my hand on my new laptop. And we talked about this when we met in the office before your draft came out, but how does this for the lots within the subdivision, for the 1 lot that would be restricted, where do second dwellings or tertiary dwellings come into that? Would this now prevent someone from creating a secondary lot? So now you're trading possibly the 150% unit to restrict the 240% unit. I mean, how does that work in your mind? And is that in here? And I missed it, which is a possibility.
Yes, we took into consideration what you said, and that was a very good point. That was when we were considering doing it on 4, like a 4-lot subdivision, because the you could do a tertiary unit on there and cap it at the 150. So then we bumped it up to 5 lots because that was where we thought it would be more palatable. And I'm forgetting exactly, I don't know, Emily, are you around to provide a little more color? I know we went over this in depth. I don't have my notes in front of me right now on that particular topic. I can come back too if you're, you know, I know on the 25th, we were, you know, you said you wanted to sleep on it. And so if this gets postponed till the 25th, I'll be able to come back and tell you the answer to that, Leslie.
Okay.
Great, thanks. And must be having internet issues. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to hold till the 25th.
Second.
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Barry. Joe.
Aye.
Barry.
Aye.
As well. Thank you, Ann. We'll
you,
get
Ann.
through this.
Thank you very much.
All right. Great meeting. Thanks, folks. Is there anything else, staff? Well, then I would entertain a motion.
To adjourn, absolutely.
Second.
Motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry.
Aye.
Joe. And I'm an aye as well. Good job, folks. Thank you. Staff,
Thank
you're
Thank you,
amazing.
staff.
Always.
Thank you.